I'll start all over again. I'm Jonathan McIntyre. I'm the director for the Center for Workplace Strategy in the Office of Architecture and Engineering. Liz?
I'm Liz York, and I'm a sustainable design expert in the Office of High Performance Federal Green Buildings at GSA.
So you'll learn a little bit more about each of us as the day progresses. We're looking forward to these sessions that are ahead. The invite actually broke down the afternoon into different segments. So feel free to drop in, drop out, per your interests. And we can, again, share out the recording as soon as we get that issued to us. So back in June 13th, Liz took us through the Health and Buildings and Workplace offerings, gave a great overview of that. And each of the offerings is basically a tool that we can use in one way, shape, or form in kind of doing the research for health and buildings and workplace. So this afternoon, we'll feature each of the tools. It's meant to be an interactive session. Feel free to raise your hand or send a question through the chat. We'll be monitoring that. And then before the end of each session, we'll definitely have time for Q&A if any questions come up. I don't think this will be the last time that you talk to us. I think as we roll these tools out, we're here to help kind of get you jump started into these tools and to get you used to how to use them and when to use them, etc. So more to come on that. But our goal in the Center for Workplace Strategy itself is actually to incorporate these and integrate these features within our workplace engagement. So as we do our research with different federal agencies, these tools would be a part of the process in which we gather information. And then that information is actually transformed into actionable strategies for the different agencies. So ultimately, from the workplace engagement, again, for the Center for Workplace Engagement, it's got a very specific goal and benefit that we see in the future. It ultimately, incorporating health practices within the engagement is just going to be a standard operating procedure for us. It's just going to be the part of the DNA of every project that we do. But outside of the Center for Workplace Strategy, the tools here that you're about to see are also going to be really beneficial for a variety of other projects, other research that you choose. So for example, if you have an existing building that maybe is experiencing some environmental issues, the tools that you see this afternoon could actually be deployed and information could be gathered. Then the team could actually sit down and talk about the findings and then possibly come up with a plan to help rectify the situation. It can also be used for design and construction projects in the early design phases. And then also it could be also used as a post-occupancy evaluation so that you could see, between where you started and where you ended up, how the trends were, how the information actually that was gathered would be beneficial for the projects. The tools are here to kind of support the work that we do. They're not meant to be punitive. I mean, we're here to kind of see and identify where maybe some gaps are and then help the design team to really kind of address it directly. You may be asking who can use these tools. Actually, it's everybody that's on this call. So we have some workplace strategists that are on the call, project managers, building managers, architects, engineers, interior designers. We have a plethora of consultants, experts that are on this call, especially in the realm of workplace. And last but not least, customers can actually pick up these tools and use them directly as well. So the tools by themselves are actually multifunctional. And it's really up to your own creativity to decide how to deploy them and how to use them to your advantage. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Liz. And Liz, I know once you start sharing, you kind of lose view of the audience. But if there are any people that raise their hands, or I'll be monitoring the questions in the chat, I'll let you know what I see.
Thanks, Jonathan. And thanks for the great introduction. I have the slides up. Let me know if you can see it. Give me a thumbs up, Jonathan, if you can see the slides. Great. Okay. So quickly, I'm just going to go over some of the items that Jonathan was describing. With I'll give you a visual representation because it does sometimes help. So the first thing that I wanted to do was share our schedule for today. We're going to take about another 5 or 6 minutes to give you this introduction. Then I'm going to change slideshows, and I'm going to start talking about occupant surveys. At 1:30, we will have Michael Bloom from my office, who will be giving a presentation on the total workplace scorecard. And then we're going to take a 15-minute break. Yay for the break. It'll be kind of like a dessert after you have, the first courses. And then we're going to come back at 2:15, where Vivian Lofness, Kevin Keene, and Brian Gilligan will be giving us kind of our main course meal. That's 60 minutes on one topic, and that is sensors. And finally, we will have Ryan Dorfler, who will give us 30 minutes on the WIFM tool, and we will wrap up with a more in-depth Q&A. Now, at each of these sessions, if you have an immediate question, feel free to bring it up. But at the end of the day, we'll really have a lot more time if you want to either talk about all the tools or how you would use these together. So just be thinking about that as we go along. So I did want to just go through again what it is we're doing, why we're doing this, why should we focus on health and buildings plus workplace, what are the tools that are available, and how can they be integrated into our project phases. I just am giving you a little snippet recap of what we talked about back in June, and I'll be done in just a second. This is just an intro for people who missed it. One of the main questions we're trying to answer with any project is, what is it we're trying to achieve for the occupants of the building, for the mission of the organization that has those occupants working with it, working for it. What is it that we're trying to achieve within real estate, within space, within our buildings? Well, we're trying to figure out what is working well, figuring out what we want to promote, what improvements do the occupants want, how can we enhance the mission of the organization, and then which risks are most concerning within the building, within the project area. And so how can we take all of those questions, find answers to them, and that helps us get a better project down the road, a better facility, and ultimately better health for all the people that enter that facility. I wanted to put up this slide to describe the different ways that our organization, that GSA has been working on health over the years. There are many, many different programs, and this is just one that is pulling all that we have learned into one place, and we're sharing that out with all of you today in these different workshop sessions. I wanted to bring up the list of tools that we're going to review today. You got a little bit of it from the schedule, but just briefly, we're gonna, today is team training. We are right now in the middle of tool number 1. So be excited, you can check off the box, I'm doing team training right now, but also know that you can conduct team training at any time with your project team, with your O&M team, with the team that you have in your architecture firm, in your interiors firm, your engineering, or with your group within your agency or within GSA. The second tool is the occupant survey, and I'll talk about that in detail later today. And finally, the facility scorecard, which, as I said, Michael will go through, and then sensors, occupancy tools, and the tip sheets. We won't talk about the tip sheets today, but hopefully you already have information on that, or if you need it, you can reach back to us and ask. As Jonathan talked about, these tools can be integrated across the project delivery process. You can see how there are some listed in the beginning programming design development phase, that what you learn with the tools, then it influences what you do in the design phase. And then after the fact, you can do measuring again, you can deploy sensors, you can distribute tip sheets and get an as-built scorecard. You can find out how well your project is really meeting the objectives that you set up at the beginning. And then in terms of next steps, we are going to have a follow-up survey. I will show it again at the end of all the sessions, but that's it right there. Jonathan, maybe I can cut and paste it and put it in the, drop it in the chat. And then I just have the listing of the sessions again so that people can take a note of when we'll be here and what we'll be talking about. So that's it. I'm going to, let me see, I think I have, yep, one more for more information. Now what I'm going to do is close out this presentation and open a different one about surveys, and then I'm going to kick that off. Let's see, how do I share? Go. And I'm almost there. Yes, share. And start. Okay, great. So welcome to anyone who has just joined. It's 1:15, and we're going to start to talk about the second tool in our list, in our group of buildings and health plus workplace tools, which is called Occupant surveys. And what I'm going to do today is give you, you can see this is a list of tools, and number 2 is Occupant survey. This is what we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to try to give you an overview of why you would do an occupant survey in the first place, like why, how can they be integrated into your projects, what makes an effective survey, some of the timing considerations, what tools are available, what kind of survey tools you could use, and then I'm going to give you the sample questions. And so what I want to start off at the very beginning is say, I'm going to give you a lot more information about surveys than you actually need, because we're going to give you the questions, right? However, I feel like you need to know all this information about surveys so that you can understand what the survey is doing for you, and you don't let it trip you up in customizing it for your own project or your own facility conversation. So bear with me, and I'll try to describe that a little bit more as we go. So why do we survey? So the reason that you survey occupants is because you want to understand the human perspectives. It is true. People are, we can use sensors to measure data in our building, but people are also great sensors. And what you get from people is a little different than what you might get quantitatively from sensors themselves, from mechanical sensors that you put in your space. So you are surveying the occupants because you're trying to measure comfort and health, not just numbers, but rather their comfort. The second reason is that you are going to discover things from your survey of people that you won't get from just looking at plans or walking through the building. You're going to, you know how we as architects and designers, we design a building to work a certain way, and then we go back and the occupants aren't using it that way at all. So this is another way, by surveying, you're finding out how the building is really being used by people, how they are really experiencing that three-dimensional object that we've put there for their use. The third reason I would say that you would survey is because it creates social value between you, the building designer, or the building operations and maintenance team. It creates connection of you with the occupants in the building. And that lets them feel heard. It lets them feel valued. It can boost their morale. And frankly, as we talked about already, it gives you more information about what it is that they care about, that they're concerned about. And that can help you with number 4. It can help you with decision making, because as we gain more information from all of these different tools, it helps us have the full picture. We understand the building's strengths and weaknesses, and we can make more informed decisions, either in just normal management of the building, or when we are moving forward to do some sort of a project or an intervention within a building. It helps us have more information and make better decisions. So you might be asking, okay, how can I administer a survey? And these are just a few ideas, and you can do these, a combination of these. You can overlap them. You can do it just one way. But a lot of people, when the project team gets together and like, we'll do an email survey. Well, that's very popular, and that's probably the number one way that people survey. They survey all the occupants, and they get back the data, and then they can use that in their decision-making process. But you can also take these questions and you can integrate them into leadership interviews if you're interviewing the client leadership or managers. You can also have focus groups or occupant interviews, just to, just man on the street, here, answer 5 questions for me. That can be kind of fun. I've also seen tabling, where you set up a table at the front door of the building and you ask people to engage with you. And these QR code surveys can also be another way to gain information, especially if you have a lot of transient population that just come into the building. You don't have their email address, you can't reach them specifically, but you can have a QR code where they use their phone, and then they can go to your survey, and it's like an email survey, but it's an online survey. In terms of effective surveys, and this is where I want to get all this information kind of in front of you, so that as you're customizing the questions we're going to give you at the end for your project or your building, you understand kind of the do's and don'ts. So for example, you want to keep a survey short. You want it to be a less than 5-minute survey, because then you're going to get the greatest number of responses. And responses are that's what you want. That's the that's how you know what you know, because you get a lot of responses. If you wanted to have people do a 5-minute survey, that's somewhere kind of around 15 questions. And if that's like 15 multiple choice questions. If you wanted one where they're actually typing a few of what their concerns or their ideas, then you're looking at more like 8 to 10 questions, with a couple of those being free response. The second thing in terms of effective surveys is you want to keep the questions short. You want the syntax to be very simple. You want it to feel very easy to read and easy to complete. You shouldn't have any words in there that are, what do they call them? SAT words, right? You want it to be very simple and very, very clear and easy and fast for the occupant to complete it. You want to also go for clarity and only ask about one topic per question. You don't want to have a double barrel question where you say, do you like dinner and a movie? Well, if they like dinner, but they don't like movies, they don't really know how to answer yes or no. So you don't want to do that. You also don't want to have a double negative in the question, because that makes the syntax very difficult to figure out. Okay, and then if I answer no, or wait, do I answer a 5 or a 1? So you want to keep it really clear and simple. Number 4, you want to avoid bias in your questions. And a really easy way to do this is to not use language that leads someone to answer a certain way. One of the examples is, like, if you were to say, what do you think about the expert's opinion, blah, 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 blah. Well, you've already now said this person's an expert, and so that's gonna bias your answer to be towards saying that their opinion was good. So just think about, if you are changing these questions that you don't introduce anything that might create bias for the question taker. Number 5, you want to, when you're using gradients, like a Likert scale, you know, this is good, better, best, make sure you put them in order, not mix them around, and make sure that you're using them from worst to best, and that they are equal steps between each of the gradients. You don't want to use a bunch of words, and sometimes somebody might think this one means more than, more than the one after it. You want them to be very clearly in a row, a scale from 1 to 7. On that, number 6, it's helpful to vary your question types so that people don't feel like, oh, I'm just answering the same thing over and over, but give them some yes and no, some multiple choice. A 7-point Likert scale is preferred over a 5-point. Usually you see a 5-point, but a 7-point gives you a lot more information about how people are really feeling about the things you're asking them. And then giving an open-ended question or a short answer question, it really will give you additional information to make decisions on. Number 7, keep the same questions from year to year or from project to project in order to identify any trends. If you start changing questions, changing this word, then you can't compare this year's survey with last year's survey. This is why we're sharing with you the questions we have, and it's great to be able to compare a lot of different projects and say these are the concerns that keep coming up. And then finally, on this page, offer incentives. And I know it's not easy to offer incentives in the federal government, but you can. I mean, there are cases where you can say, take the survey and you can have 59 minutes off on Friday. Or I know on our own internal employee viewpoint survey, there's a way that you can click to get no more reminder emails. And that's an incentive for me to go ahead and take the survey. So anyway, that's some tips for effective surveys. In terms of timing your survey, you want to give at least 10 to 14 days for an email survey. And the larger the group, you want to give a little more time. Remember, your goal is to get responses. And another thing you can do to help get more responses is to provide updates on response rates as you're going through the survey period. And if you do it by subgroup, it lets the leader of that subgroup say, hey guys, we're only at 29%. Everybody take 15 minutes and take the survey. So that's another good tip. I also like to officially close your surveys on Friday, and then don't actually close it until Monday, so that if anybody sees it over the weekend and wants to take it, you can get their response. I'd also avoid holidays, avoid busy times like the annual meeting or closeout of the fiscal year. And then providing reminders, it's very helpful. I always, when I'm looking at surveys, I see spikes of activity when the survey goes out, when you get the first reminder, when you get the last reminder, and then the day before the survey closes. And then if you don't have the responses you need, then you can always extend. I know nobody likes to make their project longer, but it is something you can kind of figure into your calendar and extend if necessary. So these are some common survey instruments. I know that we use Google Forms a lot, and you will see the Google Forms survey at the end of the day that I've created for this particular set of training workshops. It's easy to use, and we can get to it pretty easily. SurveyMonkey is another easy to use survey instrument. And then I also went ahead and Googled, I Google searched alternatives to SurveyMonkey. That's another way that you can find something else if you prefer another survey instrument for your surveys. And then finally, the moment you've been waiting for, what are the questions? What are the questions we should use for our survey? And these are the 2 different places you can get already made questions for your survey about health and buildings. And we can copy these into the chat for you or share them with you after the fact, we will send out these links to you at the end. But really quickly, I wanted to just read through some of these questions for you. Oh, okay, there we go. So in a typical week, what portion of your work time do you spend at the locations listed below? And you ask them to put in percents. When working in your primary location, what kinds of individual workspaces do you use? You get a little information about that. And then you ask them, what's your typical state of comfort in your primary workplace for each season? And you ask them to rate a state of comfort on a Likert scale. Something's going on with my slides. I'm sorry about that. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I just have a little delay on some of the questions. So which of the following air quality issues do you experience? And we have a list: odor, stuffiness, humidity, dryness, dust. How satisfied are you with the lighting in your primary workspace? You have a Likert scale. Which of the following electric lighting issues do you experience? Too bright, too dim, etc. How satisfied are you with the daylight in your primary workspace? A Likert scale again. And then, does your primary workspace have windows? And then, you can answer yes or no, or how close they are. How satisfied are you with control for glare? And you can get some information on that, and a Likert scale. And then finally, provide any additional comments concerning your overall satisfaction. So that's a pretty typical survey. I listed, wait, let me just go back over to it. On this slide, I showed you there's two different places you can get these survey questions. The one I just went over was the PNNL Healthy Buildings Toolkit, but you can also go straight to SF Tool and you can get an entire list of survey questions, and you would choose your questions from questions 47 through 84. And there's a ton of questions there, similar to the ones we just went over, and you would just think about what it is you're trying to achieve and create your survey based on those questions and similar ones. So that's what I have for you today. I'm going to go to the end